Welcome aboard Just Jets with your captain, Matt O'Leary. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Hello and welcome to episode 14 of Just Jets. What's going on? Matt O'Leary here with you, hanging out, talking New York Jets football on a podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to ask you that if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe wherever you get your content. I genuinely appreciate it. This is my one time a week. Usually it's shorter form content. I usually just go. There's not a whole lot of editing in this, so we're kind of just hitting out, chilling, relaxing, talking New York Jets football. What's better than that? And there was one big news story from this week, which I want to start with. It's more NFL general, and then we're going to get into the backup quarterback conundrum. I know I've talked a lot about the backup quarterback position, but something came up this week which made me want to talk about it a little bit more and why the pick for James Morgan didn't make that much sense, especially after all of this, and just basically how the Jets have handled that position. But where I want to start is the adjustment with the Rooney Rule. So essentially, before, if you have no idea what the Rooney Rule is, when a new coach was set to be hired or a new position in the NFL, could be general manager too, you have to at least interview one minority candidate. And the reason for that is, unfortunately, in the NFL, there's not a ton of diversity, right? That's something that is truly, truly lacking when you look around the league in positions of power, such as general manager or head coach. And this was the change that they were trying to implement to this Rooney Rule. I'm going to read it word for word, and then we'll get after it. So, here we go. Any NFL team that hires a minority head coach will be rewarded by having its third-round pick the following year, meaning before the coach's second year, improved by 6 places. A team that hires a general manager that's a minority would see that third-round pick jump up 10 spots. And for NFL teams that hire minority as a coach and general manager, a jump of 16 spots. That, I don't think, is the proper way of trying to get more diversity into the mix. I 100% agree and am for getting this league more diverse. There absolutely should be more diversity in this league, and coaches should be more diverse. It shouldn't be all people who look exactly like me. It has to be a little bit more diverse. Not saying that. But this is almost insulting. Anthony Lynn had this quote and says, "I think sometimes you could do the wrong thing while trying to do the right thing." That was his response to this. And again, I get what the NFL is trying to do. They are trying to make a change, but this is just embarrassing. This is just going to have teams improving their draft stock if they hire a minority coach. That shouldn't be the reason for why you are hiring a coach. Right? You should be hiring the most qualified person available. No matter what their race, no matter what their ethnicity is, should not matter. Unfortunately, that's an issue. Agree that it has to be addressed. But implementing this change to the Rooney Rule comes off as more insulting. Because then think of it like this. Would a team potentially just hire a minority coach and minority GM who maybe wouldn't be their first choice just to get that 16 spot jump in the draft? Because that's not right either, right? There has to be some other way that we can go about doing this. It can't be, the only way we're going to get this league more diverse is by implementing a rule where you can improve your draft stock. That's crazy. To me, you should not have who you have as a head coach or general manager dictate where you are picking in the NFL draft. That's crazy. To me, that is a step that is way too far. I can't imagine people who have been passed overs for opportunities. Like, for instance, let's just say Eric Bieniemy, because he's someone who's been brought up in coaching conversations over the last couple of years, and he hasn't gotten an offer, which is, I think, a little bit on the surprising side. Is it because of his race? I don't know that to be sure, right? There is no way you can sit here and say that's definitely the reason. It's such a tricky situation. It really is. But if we're just using that as an example, right, how do you think he would feel if he was hired and this rule was implemented? Wouldn't it feel like you're belittling these coaches and general managers who are qualified, by the way? Like, I'm not saying that, hiring a minority for a position like general manager or head coach, where you would just be putting someone in that position because of this rule. It shouldn't be like that at all. Again, it shouldn't have to come to that. Is this the best way to change the league? Because, let's think about it. We're Jets fans, right? That's why you're watching this channel. How guys like Adam Gase and Dowell Loggins continue to get opportunities is crazy. The league has this culture of where they have their click guys, and they stick around forever. Now, like, sometimes you have like Greg Williamses who bounce around, or like Wade Phillips has been on a million different teams as a coordinator. And that they've had success. But how like Rob Ryan was in the league for so long with awful defenses, I don't know. How Dowell Loggins is still in the league after having bottom 5 offenses since the start of 2016 is really a head scratcher. Oftentimes, these coaches who do get hired, they go out and hire their guys, like their buddies. That, to me, is the bigger issue. Coaches who get hired, and general managers who get hired as well, going more for their guys than the most qualified position, right? That even happens when coaches get hired and they want to go out and get their players. Like Adam Gase bringing in Demaryius Thomas last year, or bringing in Frank Gore this year. You want to get your guys. And to me, that's such a big thing with the NFL, where there's not enough turnover at any position. Like I said, general manager, coach, on the field with the players. It's very click-orientated. I think that's the bigger issue. And I don't think this rule adjustment, which really didn't go over well on social media too, by the way, I don't think this is the way to solve that issue. I'm not smart enough to know what the right step is. You would hope that in 2020, stuff like this wouldn't have to be an issue. But unfortunately, we are talking about it. There are many minorities in this league who you could argue could and should get head coaching opportunities. There shouldn't be this stigma in the league. It shouldn't be. It's embarrassing just for someone who, follows the league and likes the league so much and covers the league in the way that I do. Again, I don't know what I would want to do differently. I know how the person I am, I would want to hire the most qualified person, no matter what they look like. Again, maybe not every owner or general manager feels that way, which is sad, and that's why you have to come up with ideas like this. But this incentive program of improving your draft stock 6, 10, or 16 spots for hiring a minority to be your general manager or head coach, that's almost a slap in the face to those fine people who are extremely qualified, because that's almost like like I said earlier, I'm talking myself in a circle here, but it's almost belittling. It's sad. It is. And the league does need a change, but I'm not sure this is the right way. I'm not. And based off of Anthony Lynn's response and so many others on social media, I tend to think that this was a big swing and a miss from the NFL. So I want to start off the show today by talking about that. That kind of disappointed me, and I just wanted to get that out there, my 2 cents on the topic at hand out there. It's an uncomfortable conversation. There's no denying that. It's something that has to be talked about, because if you don't talk about it, things don't change. Like I just don't think that's the right way to do it. Next up, I wanted to get into the backup quarterback conundrum. That's what I'm calling this topic. And the reason for that is because we were able to find out what David Fales signed for. So it was released that Fales signed for $910,000, which is the veteran minimum, but only $100,000 of that money is guaranteed. So he's making very, very little, like about as small of a contract as you could have at the veteran minimum. Now, the Jets, as we know, so you had before the draft, Sam Darnold and David Fales. Those were the two guys at the quarterback position. You draft Moore in the 4th round. So how the Jets are kind of operating right this minute is that Fales' roster spot isn't guaranteed, which I agree with. I don't think this is someone who you should feel comfortable with as your number 2 quarterback. And supposedly the Jets have looked at veteran options, like they were looking at Andy Dalton, which I think would have made a ton of sense. And there are still guys like Matt Moore, Joe Flacco, Blake Bortles, all guys who have starting experience, who have backup experience now, and who I would feel more comfortable if Sam Darnold did get hurt in 2020. We're not wishing this to happen, obviously, but you have to be prepared. I would feel a heck of a lot more comfortable if Joe Flacco, Blake Bortles, or Matt Moore had to play a game or two rather than a 4th round developmental project or David Fales, right? Because then you're in a situation like you were last year when it was an absolute dumpster fire when you had to go to Luke Falk and Trevor Siemian. The real kicker here is no matter how you slice it, you're going to have to carry 3 quarterbacks on your roster, which you're not going to put the 4th rounder on the practice squad because you risk losing him at that point. So you got to assume that he makes the roster. And from there, are you comfortable enough to have him be the backup? Because I'm not. And if you do bring in a guy like Moore, Flacco, Bortles, which I would be 100% for, that's 3 guys on the roster. You realistically should be carrying 2. There's not a very often in today's NFL. It's rare that you see teams with the 3, right? And it's even crazier when you have 4, which is what the Jets did in 2016, which was just bananas. But that was kind of the precursor for that disaster of a season. So let's play the game, right? Let's say Matt Moore signs. Just use that as an example. So now you have Darnold, Moore, Fales, and Morgan. It's a lot of reps. And at that point, Darnold is the quarterback 1. Like that's a given. He's getting all the starting reps in preseason and if there is a training camp, who knows. From there, like having Fales take away reps from the kid Morgan and even the backup quarterback was just a complete waste. Like I don't think he should be even in the mix at that point. It's just very tricky. I don't like how the Jets handle the backup position this year. I don't. And I know you signed Fales for virtually nothing, but that was a throwaway contract essentially. And again, I'll say it again, with the Morgan pick in the 4th round, with how they've done everything, and if they would go out and sign a veteran, that would just feel like a waste of a draft pick with who was left on the board in the 4th round. You could have addressed the position of need at that point. You could have doubled down and taken a wide receiver there. You could have taken another edge rusher. You could have taken a corner there. A little bit more of an impact position because, like, the Jets roster is not perfect. They've been a bad team for a long time. They don't have a ton of depth. And the way that you build depth is through mid-round picks. So if you're going to go out and sign a backup quarterback who you have a little bit more faith in, then what is Morgan giving to you in 2020? Nothing. That's my biggest issue is he's a 2021 project, and I don't think the Jets have the luxury with their roster in order to put something like that on hold. Be like, we could take a quarterback this year and groom him to be the second quarterback of the future. Nah, man. Why? draft another receiver and go sign Matt Moore for peanuts. That's the move. And that should have been the move from the beginning. And that, I think, is what's really going to bug me about this draft. I give it a B+. I mean, if you watched my takes on Joe Douglas, you'll know that I'm a Joe Douglas guy. I thought he had a really good first draft. That one was a head scratcher. Didn't really get that one all too much. All right, we're going to get into the voicemails now. First one is from Jack from Westchester. Wants to talk a little about Marcus Maye and if he could be traded.
Hey, it's Jack from Westchester. And I was wondering, maybe we could package Marcus Maye and a second-round pick for, like, Juju Smith. Or then maybe, like, Marcus Maye and a second-round pick and, like, a fourth-round pick for Yannick Ngakoue. Because, you know, we drafted Ashton Davis in the third round. All right, big fan. Be safe. See you later.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you and your family are safe too, Jack. I really appreciate that. I agree that I think Maye is going to be moved. I don't think, if I had to bet, I don't think it's going to be before the season. I think that's going to be like a trade deadline for a pick kind of thing. I know what a lot of people are probably going to say, well, why don't you just let him walk and take a comp pick? I don't think the Jets are going to be in a position to get a good comp pick. One, Maye's not someone who's going to get you a third-round comp pick. And on top of that, Joe Douglas kind of set himself up to spend a lot of money in free agency in 2021. Or, if not a lot, enough that you're not getting a million comp picks. And for a player like Marcus Maye, what's that comp pick going to be? A fifth-rounder, maybe? I think I would be, if we're picking from these two options, as much as I love Yannick, and I really like him a lot, I would rather Juju because I want to make life as easy for Sam Darnold as humanly possible. And I think people are putting a little bit too much stock into Perryman. I am hoping that he is the player that he was in the final 5 weeks of last year, but we're just looking at that sample size and kind of ignoring what he was earlier in his career. Again, I'm fine with taking a flyer on him. I am. But if you are expecting him to put up wide receiver 1 numbers this year, probably a little bit of a stretch. So getting in a bona fide dude like Juju, a Juju Smith-Schuster, and Denzel Mims 1-2 punch is solid. The Jets need another receiver in here for sure. And moving a second-rounder and Maye for Juju, I would do that in a second. I really would. And I would take that risk and play Ashton Davis at free safety right now. I think that would be an interesting move. I like the idea behind that, Jack. Next up is Jack from Morristown who wants to talk about Logan Ryan.
Jack. Jack, Morristown, New Jersey. And do you think that we are going to sign Logan Ryan because Manish Mehta kind of screwed that up yesterday? And do you think we're going to sign Larry Warford if we have enough money when we finally cut Tremaine Johnson and get that $11 million? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Yeah, I really don't know what the heck's going on, man. Manish, I don't know. I don't know what to believe with that, what he puts out sometimes. I think Logan Ryan ends up signing. I do. It's just scaring me that it's taking this long, I guess. It's not like them signing Logan Ryan's not a make or break. He's a good player, but this is not going to bring them from a 7-win team to a 9 or a 10-win team. Right? It's just another nice piece for that defense, which I think should be around maybe 10th to 12th to 13th, somewhere in that range in defensive DVOA this year, somewhere like that. I like the player a lot. I think he's a really good player. I would really like them to sign Warford, though, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Warford coming up in a question in a little bit, but yeah, I think eventually for Ryan, I think Ryan does sign, though. If I had to bet, I feel like Ryan's going to be the one that they sign. Next up is Drew, North Carolina, also wants to talk Logan Ryan.
Hey, Matt, this is Drew from Charlotte, North Carolina. I just got a really burning question for you today. So I don't know if I can wait till Monday for you to answer this, honestly. My question for you is, I like the potential signing of Logan Ryan, but then at the same time I don't, because the New York Jets already have a really good slot corner in Brian Poole, one of the best in the league, in fact.
True.
Yet we go out and sign or potentially sign a slot corner. Logan Ryan played the majority of his snaps from the slot position. He has for his whole career. Don't get me wrong, I like Logan Ryan. He shows up in the big moments. At the end of the game, you can really count on him to play. But why at this point do we need a slot corner? That's my question for you. Thanks.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I get it, dude. I really do. It seems almost a little bit redundant, but when you think about it, in today's NFL, how many times are teams lining up with 4 wide receiver sets? It's more likely that you're going to see that than compared to, 20 years ago in the NFL when that's very rare. You would see 4 wide receivers on the field at the same time, unless you were down and really trying to just be pass heavy. But at this point, you could use the cornerback depth, and because you have guys like Bless Austin who you could trust on the outside, right? Because you have Desir, who's going to play on the outside. I think Ryan could play a little bit on the outside. I don't know if he's going to be strictly in the slot. I understand the concern. I look at him as someone like that Greg Williams could do a couple of different things with. I think he would move him around the field and have a couple different roles. Because I agree with you. Brian Poole is one of the best slot corners in the game. I know he was signed on a 1-year deal, cheap deal at $5 million. I think he should be extended, depending on how he plays this year, obviously. But if things go similar to how it was last year, I'd definitely look to bring him back. I think Ryan would just be like a stopgap kind of, plug piece and, let him go. I kind of said it a little bit earlier. I don't think this is a defensive changing, type of move. If they added a premier pass rusher, then yeah, that's probably a little bit more of a, defense defining signing. And, ultimately here, Ryan isn't a necessity. It would be nice to add him, but I don't look at Logan Ryan as a necessity. Next up is Josh from Woodmere, who wants to talk about Jason Peters.
Hey, Matt. It's Josh from Woodmere. I just had a question on Jason Peters because I heard a rumor that the Jets are interested in him. If the Jets do bring in Jason Peters, who do you think will be their 2 starting left tackles? What do you think they'll do with Fant? And who do you think will play on the left side? Do you think Becton goes on the right? Peters goes on the left. What do you think they would do with their 3 tackles? And thank you, and go Jets.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Josh. So I think I would be surprised at this point if they did sign Jason Peters, just because it seems like they really like Fant. To me, if they went wide receiver in round 1 and signed Jason Peters, I'd say, okay, you know what, I could see the logic behind that. At this point, if Peters was signed, I don't know if that's a guarantee that he would be a starter. I don't. Becton's going to play left tackle. He's going to be the opening day starting left tackle, if he doesn't get hurt or anything crazy like that. And I truly think they want Fant to start. I think Chuma Doga there will be a competition for the right tackle spot, but I can't see Fant not beating out Chuma Doga. I don't think Peters is going to be brought in here to start. If he wants to be brought in for depth, okay, fine. I'm cool with it. But I think if I were a betting man, which I am, I would bet on him going back to Philadelphia. I really would. Thank you so much for the question again. We're going to go now to Ace in Fort Lauderdale. It's a little bit of a longer one, but it's on Sam Darnold, so I think it'll go over well.
Hey, Matt, Ace, Fort Lauderdale. Coming back with another voicemail here. The topic is Sam Darnold. I'm having a debate with my brother on what the future holds for Darnold, and I guess ultimately he thinks that, he probably should have sat behind Josh McCown for the first year. He's too young, didn't want to throw him out there to the Wolves just as soon as we did. And I was trying to explain to him, when you draft him number 3 overall and all the capital we gave up, if he wins a spot in training camp, you got to give it to him. And it got me to thinking. We've seen flashes of Darnold. Potentially he can be a great quarterback for the Jets, but ultimately my brother thinks that Drew Lock, Gardner Minshew, and Daniel Jones will be better quarterbacks in the NFL moving forward. Wanted to get your take on that, and I wanted to get your gut feeling on if you think Sam Darnold will be the quarterback for the Jets for the next 10, 15 years. Thanks, and go Jets.
I really like this question a lot, Ace. I do. And I don't agree with your brother a lot at all. So let me explain. We'll start from the top, I guess, with him. Should he have started last year? I think he should have. I really do, because, you look at in 2018, his rookie year, Josh McCown, when he did play, when Sam Darnold was hurt, McCown was washed, man. He was done. And in training camp, it's not like McCown beat him out. It's not. And in today's league, I'm not saying the Jets necessarily did it right in his first 2 years, but having a rookie or a quarterback on his rookie contract is extremely valuable. You want to get him as much experience as possible. And I don't think sitting him for that year would have been the right choice. I don't. I think how the Jets have handled that has been fine. Like you saw him, it wasn't a significant step forward in 2019, but from 2018 to 2019, Sam did get better. He threw for more touchdowns, less interceptions, more yards per game went up, completion percentage went up, passer rating went up. He got a better, and I thought he was a little bit more consistent. There were times when he wasn't good. New England game, for sure. Jacksonville game wasn't great either. And there were still mistakes. And he was a young player at 22 years old. He's going to be 23 this year. And, ultimately here, I think he is going to be the guy for the next 15 years. I do. I think he's going to be, someone that the Jets, could put out there. He should be able to, if he stays healthy for 16 games this year, which, he had mono last year. It's not like he, got hurt again. It was a freak thing. There's no reason this guy can't throw for 35 plus 100 yards and close to 30 touchdowns. There really isn't. It's all about the coaching staff. That's the one thing that worries me. It's not so much Darnold. It's more so the offensive coaching staff. I don't have a lot of trust in them because they have a track record of unproductive offenses in the NFL. That's the thing that scares me. And as for the other three, who was it? Minshew, I don't think is a long-term option. I don't think the Jaguars are going to be very good. I think they're going to look to draft a quarterback this year. So I would not say that Minshew's going to be better. Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold, I think, are at a similar point right now. Obviously, Daniel Jones has played one less year. He has a little bit of a better situation, I would say. But I think skill set wise, Darnold has more of the raw skill. So I would probably bet on him being better. But I guess I wouldn't be stunned if Daniel Jones was better, just because I thought he surprised me in his rookie year. And Locke, I think, is going to be solid too. I think Drew Lock takes a step forward this year. I like Darnold's potential. That's my thing. I'm trying to take the Jets bias out of it. I think that Darnold has the tools to be a top 15 quarterback in this league, at least very soon. So I'm confident in him going forward, and I think your brother should be too, Ace. Next up is William from Manhattan, wants to talk about Logan Ryan versus Warford.
Yo, what's up, man? It's William from Manhattan. Love your show, man. Keep up the good work. So if you had the choice between signing Logan Ryan and Larry Warford, who are you picking? Thanks, man. Keep up.
Thank you so much. So I think this is a no-brainer for me. I'm signing Warford, and the reason for it is what I've been preaching all off season long, is you got to make life as easy as possible for Sam Darnold. Have to. That's the number one goal. Your defense in DVOA last year was 10th. You had a very, very good defense. You are getting C.J. Mosley back. You are getting Quinnen Williams in year 2, right? Avery Williamson's going to be back healthy. You improve the secondary in terms of corner. Like the cornerback room is miles better than what it was last year by a long shot. You have a chance to have a very, very good unit, and you have a good defensive coordinator. There's no denying that. The offense, on the other hand, yes, I am excited about Sam Darnold. I think Le'Veon Bell is still a very good player in this league, and I'm excited about Mims long term. But you had the 31st ranked offense in DVOA last year. You did a lot. You overhauled that line. I understand it. But I'd feel a heck of a lot more comfortable with I don't know why I was blanking on his name, but on the right side, you have Fant. Right guard, Warford. McGovern, center. You have one of Van Roten or Lewis as your left guard. And from there, at left tackle, you have Mekhi Becton. That's a pretty solid offensive line. Right? And then you can move on and you cut Winters. Right? There's no way that Winters is going to be on this team. Cut Winters and essentially use that money, which is like $7 million, and add $2-3 million on it per year and sign this guy. He's a 28-year-old Pro Bowler. He's been in the Pro Bowl the last 3 years. He's in the prime of his career for an offensive lineman. I'd sign him to a 4-year deal right now. The only reason why he got cut is because the Saints are in cap hell, which is understandable. They're always competitive, and they just gave a ton of money to another one of their guards. You can't pay, 2 guards that kind of money. I get it. They still are going to have a very good offensive line. There's no denying that even without Warford, the Saints are going to have a really good line. And they just drafted Ruiz in the draft. So he's going to play this year. That kid's going to play. And he's a lot cheaper than what Warford is. There's no guarantee he's going to be as good, but he's a lot cheaper, which is something that the Saints decided to do because their cap situation isn't all that great. And I get it. I do. So I'm with Warford by a long shot. Make life as easy for Sam as possible. And to me, you sign him. He's the best offensive lineman on the team if you sign him. I think he's better than McGovern. I really do. I think he's really good. I think he's legit. So give me Warford out of those two guys. Last one's from Logan. This is going to be another fun one. It's a top 3, so we're going to talk top 3 top 3 players in the AFC East.
Hey, Matt. It's Logan from Connecticut, and this week's top 3 is who would you say the top 3 best players in the AFC East are right now? Thanks.
Okay. This is where my gut went on this one. I'm going to go Stephon Gilmore 1. I think he's the best player in the conference, in the division right now. Jamal 2. Thuney 3. And honorable mentions Byron Jones and Trey White. That's where I'm at on that. I don't think another Jet could be on that list. If CJ Mosley maybe could be on that list, if he has a monster year and is like an all-pro, then maybe. But Joe Thuney is like a top 4 guard in the league, man. He's really good. Gilmore's, to me, the best corner in the league right now. Adams is the best safety. Those have to be the 3. To me, those are the 3 guys. But let me know what you guys think. Who are your top 3 in the division? So that's going to do it for this week's episode. That's it on the questions. I want to thank you for tuning in to episode 14. Little rant discussion, whatever you want to call that, at the beginning of the state of the NFL and the Rooney Rule. Then we talked about backup quarterbacks. I know it's something we did already a couple of times, but when we found out what Fales' contract was this week, that was the newsiest thing that we got. Yes, we got teased with Logan Ryan, and we had a bunch of questions on Logan Ryan, so I didn't want to go too in-depth in the beginning on those 2 guys. So I appreciate the questions. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. I love doing this every week, and I'll talk to you again next week. But for now, I'm Matt O'Leary. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe. Talk to you next time.